Good vibes. Godly energy. You are listening to Hope 103.1 FM Grenada. Hope 103.1 FM.
Chosen generation, we've been called for to show His excellence. All I require for life, God has given.
Pleasant Wednesday afternoon to each and every listener locked on to Hope 103.1 FM.
We've been called for to show His excellence.
It's Wednesday, the 9th day of February 2022. And I know that you've been looking forward to this afternoon's session. And we're here discussing pertinent matters as it relates to leadership.
I know who God says I am, what He says I am.
And to take us through today's session, we have none other than Reverend John Lewis. He's the director of GITE. He's a leadership coach, trained and well able to take us through this session, yes? Blessed afternoon, Reverend John. How are you today?
Good evening, and thank you. It's another beautiful day here in Grenada. I'm sure it's across the Caribbean as well, and hopefully in other parts where people are today.
Right. Indeed, it is a pleasure to be here. We welcome those listening to us across the Caribbean, as you just indicated, and those across the United States. And welcome all listeners on our radio, viewers on YouTube. This is our 27th episode of Leadership Plus, and it has been an exciting journey so far. I hope it has been the same for you, Reverend John. You've been the one sharing the most.
Yes, yes, it has been a good experience, and we trust that those who join the discussions benefit from it. And today we have an exciting discussion. It's called Today Matters, Leadership and Personal Growth.
Yes. And when we're going to get right into it, folks. There's a lot of great information ahead. And in our text for today, there's a statement that stuck with me the most. It says, stop learning today and you'll stop leading tomorrow. That is such a powerful statement. It really takes leadership from being just, a position, and it makes it more of a way of life. It emphasizes on the importance, of continuous learning, investing in one's personal growth. Again, let me take that statement. Stop learning today, and you'll stop leading tomorrow. Can you take us further into today's topic, which is, as you just stated, leadership? Today matters, leadership and personal growth.
Right. So the emphasis today is on your own personal growth. It says personal growth is vital to your leadership. If you cease to grow, you cease to be a healthy leader. Healthy things naturally grow. To grow personally requires you to seize opportunities daily. Each day must determine how you can grow as a leader. So the emphasis is on today. And the Benjamin Franklin, there's a quote from him here which says, one today is worth two tomorrows. What I am to be, I am now becoming. It's true, you will become what you are becoming right now. And there's a poet, Oscar Wilde, ended his life with a great regret. He had failed to seize the day. Late in life he wrote, I forgot that every little action of the common day makes or breaks my character. I ceased to be Lord over myself. I was no longer the captain of my soul. I didn't know it. I allowed pleasure to dominate me. I ended in horrible disgrace. So it has to be a daily commitment
Mm-hmm.
and the kind of choices that we make. So successful people make right decisions
Mm-hmm.
early. The emphasis is on early and manage those decisions daily.
Right.
So it is about early decision making and also about daily managing those decisions.
Mm-hmm.
So there are two sides of this first part of our discussion today. One is called preparing or repairing.
Mm-hmm.
Without a plan for your personal growth, you'll be reacting to life instead of living on purpose. You'll be forced to make repairs on your life because it will fall short of its potential. So here's the question. Do you want to invest time preparing or spend time repairing?
Mm.
And so we will look at the discussion that talks about the characteristics of preparing as against those of repairing. So in preparing, it allows you to focus on today. And that's really all that we've got. There is no guarantee for tomorrow,
Mm-hmm.
but preparing looks back. It makes you focus on what happened yesterday. So it takes you back into the past rather than on the present. And then preparing increases efficiency, while repairing consumes your time. Because the understanding is that you constantly have to go back and try to correct or control damage that has been done yesterday or in the past, and does not give you the energy to be efficient and on a day-to-day involvement. Preparing increases your confidence. Preparing breeds discouragement. If you're constantly in a mood of having to repair or retract, you will find that it consumes all the energy that you need, and you tend to lose confidence if you're always in a corrective mode, always having to replace the errors that have been caused or done. And as a result of continuous discouragement, you can lose interest in preparing.
Mm-hmm.
Preparing saves you money because it means that you're thinking ahead. You're planning ahead. You're thinking carefully and wisely about how you are involved in saving money. But on the other hand, if you have to repair, it increases your cost. You can compare this like having a vehicle that gives you a lot of trouble, that you constantly have to put in parts. You repair a part today and then tomorrow the mechanic says, well, it needs another part. And so it increases cost.
Yeah.
Pays now for tomorrow. So we're thinking ahead in this aspect in terms of how do you think forward rather than think backward.
Mm-hmm.
Pays now for yesterday. And it takes you to a higher growth level. So you're always on the path to growth and personal development. You're always thinking of ways that you can improve your leadership level and how you can advance into other spheres of influence. In repairing becomes an obstacle for growth. So what you will discover is that in the mood of preparing, you are confronted
Mm-hmm.
by obstacles and things in your pathway that can prevent you from moving forward.
We're hearing you a little bit low, Reverend. Could you, if it is possible, could you adjust your speaker or your headphone as it
Sure.
is? Yeah,
Sure.
we're hearing you a little far.
Okay.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about leadership. We welcome you again. And today's topic is Today Matters, Leadership and Personal Growth. And as Reverend John has been outlining so far, it comes down to decisions. Last week, we spoke about your decision determines your destiny. And so far, we've been outlining the decision to prepare or to or repair, what it gives to us. As he pointed out, I'll give us one point. He said allows you to focus on today. That's if you decide to prepare. And if you decide to repair, it makes you focus on yesterday. And yesterday is already gone. Yes. So could you continue outlining, Reverend John, for us to know what good decisions and daily decisions and discipline does for the individual who decides to prepare?
Great, thank you. So good decisions without daily discipline equals a plan without a payoff. So there is no guarantee that you will benefit without daily disciplines that would guide you in making the right decisions.
Yeah.
Daily discipline without good decisions equal a regimen without reward. And so you could have daily disciplines, but you're making poor choices. And that could leave you without any success.
That's like walking out and go to eat KFC after you finish.
Absolutely. Yes. Good decisions combined with daily discipline equals a masterpiece of potential. So we have to combine the good decisions with the disciplines that allow us to have the best potential available to us.
Yeah.
And the major part of the discussion today has to do with 12 important decisions to manage for personal growth.
Yeah, it all boils down to decision. We've seen that word again, decision. So that tells me it's not automatic. We have to have some sort of effort in there, yeah?
So we look through at these 12 important decisions to manage for personal growth. One is attitude.
Right.
And choose to display the right attitudes daily. So it's a decision that we make every day.
Yeah.
Leadership through today's attitudes gave me possibilities. Someone has said that attitude determines your altitude.
Good, yeah.
My attitude as I begin to task affects its outcome more than anything else. If you are jumping into a project and you are not comfortable with the task, it will not necessarily succeed because already you're coming to the task or to the project or to the involvement, to the job with an attitude does not lead to success. My attitude towards others often determine the attitudes toward me. So very often we would complain about the attitudes of others toward you. But we always have to do self-check and self-perspective in how your attitude is reflected and read by others as well. My attitudes, not my achievements, give me happiness. So it matters how many things you have achieved or what you've done. But basically, it goes back to your attitude, your stance, your behaviors, as a matter of fact. My attitude, good or bad, is contagious. So if a person has attitudes that are poorly directed, people are going to be reading those attitudes as well. In the same way that if our attitudes and demeanor is good and healthy, similarly, it's going to be contagious. And so attitudes, good or bad, is very contagious. And we would see that filtering down from the leadership. If a leader's attitude is good, it's positive, the followers tend to be affected by those attitudes.
Right.
The earlier you make a decision about possessing a good attitude, the greater the compounding effect on your life and leadership. Remember, attitude is a decision.
It is a decision, and based on all of what we've just pointed out, it is probably safe to say that the people who have the mentality or where they say, I want sense can't change, or so I am, so I'm born, that is a decision to keep that attitude, because we're just outlining here that attitude is a decision. You can decide to be happy, decide to have a good one, or decide to stay in a bad attitude. So it all boils down to a daily decision.
And we must have the ability to determine our attitudes. And sometimes if we're not careful, we allow the circumstances of things or persons to affect our attitude, and not realizing that decision of how we intend to project an attitude depends solely on a personal decision that we make. So here's a question for us: where is it most difficult for you to keep a positive attitude? What is one step you could take to improve your attitude? So there's always room for development and improvement of our attitudes. And so we must find those answers and seek to demonstrate attitudes that are healthy and would benefit not only yourself, but those with whom you associate with. So attitude is such a fundamental decision that affects and plays upon many other things and other decisions that will impinge upon your life. And secondly, prioritize, determine, and act upon important priorities daily. Today's priorities gives you focus. As we all know, time is our most important or precious commodity. And all of us have the same time. There are only 24 hours that are given to everyone equally, and we can determine how do we use that time with our attitudes and how we prioritize and determine the actions we're going to make. We cannot manage time, we can only manage opportunities. So time is always constant. It's just there, the clock tells you it's 5 o'clock, and we cannot do anything to change in that time, but we can manage the opportunities that would affect how efficiently we use the time that is given to us. We cannot change time, only our priorities. So you can determine the priorities you want to have for your particular day, or particular week, for example, and that these are the priorities that you will write down, that you will follow. Because the concern here is that unless we have prioritized, we will look back at the end of the day, at the end of the week, perhaps in the end of a month or a year, and realize that we have missed some priorities. And then priorities help us to choose wisely. So one of the recommendations is that even when you're planning your day ahead of the tomorrow, then you determine what are the most important things that you want to accomplish for the upcoming day. And they would suggest to us, recommend to us that to plan the evening, plan the day, the evening before, so that you're not just jumping into a new day and trying to figure out, well, what is going to happen to us rather than what you will make happen. Your time is priceless. Someone we wisely noted that time is more valuable than money. You can always get more money, but you cannot get more time. Ralph Emerson said, God will your spare moments, these are like uncut diamonds. Scar them and their value will never be known. Improve them and they can become your brightest gems. So here's a question for us. What are your top 3 most important priorities? Do you stick to them? What are the 3 most important priorities for you, personally, for your life, and for your day, and for the days ahead? So there has to be a strong sense of what is most important and how we're going to fulfill those priorities. And then thirdly, we look at the issue of health. Know and follow healthy guidelines daily. And you'll notice throughout the discussion, the emphasis on daily.
Daily, it's a decision.
Yes,
daily.
it's a decision. Our leadership through today's health gives me strength.
Mm-hmm.
Last thing, leaders recognize their body as a vehicle who carries them to their mission.
Mm-hmm.
Proper diet and exercise provide the energy to lead well over the long haul.
Mm-hmm.
Your physical health will impact your spiritual stamina and perspective. Our health is often the gift we take for granted. Then most frequently we don't think about it until something goes wrong.
True.
And so then we have to live with regret that we didn't do something early about it. Once again, we do more repairing than repairing. So rate your diet, your exercise, and your rest. And the question is, are you healthy?
Mm-hmm.
So, as suggested here, your physical health has impact on your spiritual health as well. And then, fourthly, family. Communicate with and care for my family daily. Leadership truth. Today's family gives me stability. Families are often lost, spent at the price for successful ministries. If we can't lead our homes, we can't expect to lead the church. So sometimes there is it looks like very competitive between what decisions we make about family as those we make in terms of ministry. Success is having those closest to me love and respect me the most. Families are like garden. They must be cultivated and watered regularly. You will see the difference in your garden or your neighbor's garden if they are tended and well cared for, manicured, and kept in good condition. Values that foster healthy family relationships include commitment to God, continual growth, common experiences, confidence in each other and the Lord, and making a contribution to life. So, as leader, we must put your family on the calendar first, find ways to spend time together, express appreciation for each other, be honest and resolve conflict as quickly as possible. So those are the first 4 important decisions in terms of managing for personal growth.
Right. So that leader has to every day, and that word keeps popping up, daily decision to make those adjustments. So there is a balance in everything, how we communicate, and the times we communicate with family, our health. We have to develop proper attitude towards food and see food not just as the thing to eat to keep us alive, but remember that our food carries the instructions to our body, and food is basically carrying out whatever we eat. It carries out what it's made for to do in our body. So the healthier we eat, the healthier we are as humans. It gives us the strength to carry out the work of God. And of course, we must choose good attitudes. A good attitude, it says, is contagious. And if I just start to laugh here, I'm sure 1 or 2 listeners going to start to laugh too. They don't know why, but they're going to laugh, right? Because it's contagious. Likewise, having a good attitude, it spills through the room, and, good things can happen from there on. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about Today Matters, leadership and personal growth. So today we're looking at the leader's life, the areas that should be paid attention to in personal growth. And we've been looking at those 12 principles or important decisions that manage, for personal growth. So we've gotten to number 4, and Reverend John is going to continue taking us through those principles.
Great. So number 5, thinking. Practice and develop good thinking daily. Today's thinking gives me an advantage. And the difference between successful and unsuccessful people is how they think. God is the real source of creative ideas, and He has made us in His image. And all that a man achieves or fails to achieve is the direct result of his thoughts. And so, good leaders will take time just to think through what is going to be important for them, think through about what decisions they want to make, what they want to achieve personally, but also if they're leading an organization, a particular group, or business, or even within a church context. There's a misconception that if we spend time thinking, we would be wasting time. But the most productive time that anyone can spend, it is time that is set aside to think, to reflect, to look upon making the right decisions and wise choices. So here are some thinking skills of effective people. 1, they have a big picture. Thinking abilities to think beyond yourself and your world. So very often this effective person or this leader tends to look beyond the narrow purview of how things are seen, and rather think nationally or even think globally in how they can make a difference with their lives and influence others. So there is this global picture of what they believe that they can have a part to become involved and a part to play. And then there is a focused thinking. And it is not scattered, it is not misdirected, but focused. Ability to think with clarity by removing distractions and clutter. So that's why it is going to be important that there is almost like a thinking space that is quiet and comfortable, so that your mind is clear. And one of the practices of great thinkers is to use those very early hours to think through before it becomes busy during the day, scheduled. But not only is focused thinking one of the skills, but also creative thinking. The ability to break out of your box and explore new ideas. And then very often you would meet up with objections or suggestions that what you're thinking cannot be accomplished or cannot be done. And when you look at the innovators and the great minds, they have always come up against the oppositions and thinking of others who have suggested that what they were thinking or planning to do was impossible, only to discover that later on the ideas worked. I mean, we have examples of that right now in our globe. The idea of developing Facebook, for example, where there are millions and millions of subscribers around the world, it was because Zuckerberg sat down and he had time to think through this concept. In the same way, sister company, as it were, WhatsApp, that billions of people are using around the world to communicate. And all these platforms of communication that are now useful. So there has to be allowed room for thinking, as we would say, outside of the norm, or outside of the box, and realistic thinking, ability to build a solid foundation of facts and reality. So we would have done our homework, we would have done our prep work, and so that the realistic thinking will come out as a result of having done the research, having done our investigation before we launch into a task or a project. So it has to be built on realism as well. But also in terms of the thinking skills of effective people, we have to be strategic in our thinking. And that is the ability to implement plans that increase potential tomorrows. So it's really not a hit and miss concept here, but there's been a carefully designed and developed strategy for implementation. And so it's from start to finish in terms of how we're going to get from A to B and to C, and as the case may be. So there is a particular strategic plan that is put in place to accomplish a particular task. And then we talk about possibility thinking and ability to unleash enthusiasm, hope to solve the impossible. And this is where some tasks maybe look impossible. And but with this possibility thinking, it unleashes a sense of the potential and enthusiasm. And that's where you get buy-in from others who sees potential in this possibility that you're dreaming and thinking about. But it calls us also for reflective thinking, ability to revisit the past and gain perspective. So we can go back on the past successes, the accomplishments, the achievements that have gone well, and we can think through some of those same concepts that enable us to achieve growth and development. And then we have to question the popular thinking, ability to reject common thinking, gain new ideas. So sometimes the skills that you're seeking to develop this way may go against the popular opinion. And that's why where you're seeking to question what is very popular as against what is very important, or what will make you achieve success. And then there is shared thinking, ability to include others. So this process of thinking, although an idea may originate with you because of your time to think about it, is also where you include others and collaborate others for feedback as a think tank, and seeking to get their viewpoints and have times of assessment as well to determine, because very often we may have a blind spot, some things that we may not see clearly, but others may be able to point out areas that you can revisit, revise so that you can succeed. And then bottom line thinking, ability to focus on results and reap the best rewards. So the point of thinking is that at the end of this, the processes, different, the big picture thinking, the focus thinking, the creative, strategic thinking, reflective thinking, all of this should lead to results, good results, and reaping best rewards. But all of these skills need to be in place, need to be differentiated in terms of what they achieve. And because very often if we encourage others to think through an idea, it is not clearly defined. And so our thinking can become jumbled together, but rather to determine whether this is a focus time or creative or strategic thinking, so that each trend of thinking brings the best out in the pattern of thinking through a concept or an idea.
Remember,
so that's a mouthful, yes.
Yes, it's reminding us that it's a thing of thinking daily. It's something we have to develop, and reminding us, because it might sound like a lot, but we have to think daily And it's one of the opening statements under this section is, thinking gives me an advantage. It causes you to be able to see ahead and be able to deduce what is the best or the most applicable way to deal with whatever may come up, of how to deal with things in the best way possible. So make a little time every day to think. It's not wasting time, as Reverend John pointed out. It's actually giving us an advantage.
Right. So the assessment question here is, do you have a place and time to simply sit and think? Where do you do your best thinking? So it has to be deliberate in terms of how you set aside this time and place that gives you the best result of how you want to achieve this exercise. It's a process that takes time and effort, but eventually, in the long run, you will experience the difference it would make in your personal life as a leader or as an individual that seek to make the wise decisions. And number 6, we've talked about the right attitudes, prioritizing health, family, thinking, and now it is talking about commitment. Make and keep proper commitments daily. Why commitments matter today? Commitments can change your life. Commitment helps you to overcome many of life's obstacles. Every day your commitment will be tested. Nothing is really achieved without being committed to what you believe you want to accomplish. William Murray says this. Says, the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would never otherwise have occurred. A whole stream of events issue from the decision, raising in one's favor all manner of unseen incidents and meetings and materials, assistance which no man can have dreamed that would happen. So it is really an emphasis on what you commit to. And it has to be a commitment that is made daily to what you want to accomplish. It has to be a fervent personal response to what you believe you are called to do. Ken Blanchard, one of the leadership experts, writes, he says, when you're interested in something, you do it only when it's convenient. When you're committed to something, you accept no excuses, only results. So there's a huge difference when someone says, I'm interested, and they may shop occasionally, they serve on a committee or they serve in a particular role. But the huge difference here, when a person is committed, you accept no excuses, only results. So you're all in. What are the top 3 commitments of your life? So that's a question for personal reflection. What are the top 3 commitments for your life? How could you deepen your commitment in those areas? So as you reflect upon your own life today, can you identify the top 3 commitments of your life? These commitments, for some, it's if they're involved in family life, of course, that has to be one. Whether it's in a commitment to further self-study and education, or whether it's to become a successful business person or a good pastor leader of a denomination. So the key issue here is there's a huge difference between being interested in something rather than being committed to something that you really not allowing excuses to prevent you from
Mhm.
accomplishing this goal. And you can test those commitments by people's involvement of time and resources, whether they just have casual interest in what you're seeking to do. So we're moving along. Number 7 is the critical area of finance. Make and properly manage money daily. Leadership truth. Today's finances give me options. The 3 simple truths about finances. 1, money won't make you happy.
True.
Debt will make you unhappy. Having financial margins give you option. It talks about managing money and finances. Henry Ford, of course, the founder of the great brand of vehicle. Money doesn't change men, it merely unmasks them. If a man is naturally selfish or arrogant or greedy, the money brings it out, that's all. So says Henry Ford. John Wesley ruled for money. John Wesley was a great Christian leader. Says, make all you can, save all you can, but give all you can. So how does your spending reveal what's in your heart? Because when you look at your spending habits and where the money goes, it determines what are your priorities as well.
Mm-hmm.
What changes should you make in where your money goes? We do not want to be like the person who's asking, where did the money go? And I have no clue.
That's why you have to think. You have to spend
Yeah.
the time to think and analyze yourself. Okay, where am I? What's priority? What's not? How should I put this here? Should I do this now? Should we wait till next week? You know, that will help you spend the money and recognize it's a tool.
Right.
So
And
you know what to
understand
do
how
with your money. Yeah.
Great. And as we go to number 8, faith. Deepen and live out my faith daily.
Mm-hmm.
Faith gives me divine perspective, gives me strength for today, and gives me resilience for today. Where there is no faith in the future, there is no power in the present. So I want to repeat that. Where there is no faith in the future, there is no power in the present.
Mm-hmm.
We need to live our lives well. The Bible says without faith, we can't please God. Philip Yancey, a great writer, says, faith is trusting in advance what will only make sense in reverse. So again, where there is no faith in the future, there is no power in the present. Faith gives us a divine perspective. And so that takes our attention back to sovereign God. God is ultimately in charge of our world and of our lives, especially in these times. So as a leader, do I model strong faith? How can I grow in my faith? So there's always room for growth in our faith. We have never arrived. And so what are things that we do and practice that encourage us our faith in this eternal God? Then, of course, relationships. Initiate and invest in solid relationship daily. You'll enjoy life more if you enjoy people. You'll get further in life if people enjoy you. Most people can trace their success and failures to the relationships in their life. So it's an investment. Relationships do not just happen. Good relationship, that is. It takes time and effort to build those healthy and strong relationships that we all need in our lives. People with a similar mindset, with a similar passion, similar motivations for what you're doing, seeking wisdom from God who gives us faith to build and invest in those relationships. Leadership is about relationship. Leaders must connect with people. Christianity is about relationship. You shall love the Lord your God and you shall love your neighbor. It all comes down to relationships.
Mhm.
And it's how you make the effort. There's a deliberate choice that you make, a decision that you make in
Mhm.
pursuing relationships that are going to benefit the person or persons, but also benefit your life as well. And the choices that you make about relationships will determine your own growth. And because we tend to become like the people that we associate with.
True.
So again, there's perhaps a cautionary word here, seeking wisdom in terms of the kinds of relationship that you establish within your own life is very important. And then number 10, generosity. Plan for and model generosity daily. Today's generosity gives me significance. Giving turns your focus outward. Giving adds value to others. Giving helps the giver. So we become other-centered rather than self-centered. We become selfless instead of selfish, because giving adds value to others. Also, you benefit as a result of giving out of what you have. Your life is enriched, your life is blessed. King Solomon said, the world of the generous gets larger and larger. The world of the stingy gets smaller and smaller. The one who blesses others is abundantly blessed. Those who help others are helped. We're in the world to enrich it, to bless it, to advance God's kingdom. And we impoverish ourselves if we lose sight of that. You cannot light another person's path without lighting your own. So the question for us is, do others see me as a generous person? And the question for reflection, how can I increase my generosity? And the paradox here is that as you become more generous, your own life is enriched. As King Solomon says, God enlarges your generosity. Your world becomes larger and better because you're helping others with resources that God has blessed you with. Then number 11, values. Embrace and practice good values daily. Today's values give me direction. My values function as an anchor holding me fast to what I believe. A faithful friend keeping me true to myself and to God. The North Star guiding the decisions of my life and keeping me on mission. Methods always change, but values never change. So there are fundamental values that we cherish, that we hold dear to, in values like integrity and honesty, trustworthiness, honesty. Those are values that should be a normal part of our life, a natural part of our life. So we embrace those values and practice them daily.
Yeah.
And
We got to remind ourselves of them because there's so much coming at us daily, that tells you, okay, this is all right. It's okay to do that as a Christian. You should do this. This doesn't matter. We got to be sure and resolute in our values and ensure we live them daily.
Yes, and then finally, growth. Seek and experience improvements daily. Today's growth gives me potential. Growth is misconceptions. These are some misconceptions about personal growth. That growth is automatic. This is not true. We must deliberately pursue growth. And growth comes with experience. Some never learn from it. We need to evaluate it. Growth comes from information. Knowledge doesn't guarantee growth. So we can have this head full of knowledge, but we haven't grown as a person. All it is a lot of information. So Dick says, the greatest gap in life is the one between knowing and doing. Deep down, a problem is not a lack of information. A problem is application. So with these 12 principles of our own decision making, how we manage our personal growth, the attitude that we talked about, intentionally displaying the attitudes that are helpful to us, but also impact others, the priorities that will enable us on a path to success and to growth, our own personal health, and taking the guidelines and precautions that are necessary as our health impact everything else that we do. Of course, family, how do we give them the priority, put them on the calendar, find ways to spend time, express appreciation, and resolve the conflicts. And then thinking, how do we set aside the time and place to do reflective thinking and all the different skills that reflective thinking, creative thinking. Of course, everything is hinged very much so on the commitment that we make. The attitude toward money and finances, our faith toward God, the kind of relationships that we invest in, how generous are you, the values that you hold dear to yourself, even in the midst of all the changes and the methods that we use to communicate now may change, but the values are constant. They never do. And then, of course, your own personal growth path. What plan do you have in place for your own personal growth? What areas are you lacking that you think that needs some development and that you can work on today? Because the best time to start is today. Now is the time. So we put it off till next week, next month, and then the next year comes around and realize that 2021 is gone. And 22 is going by so quickly.
I'm telling you.
So how do we do an assessment? In which of those 12 areas are you growing? So you look at these 12 areas of growth. Which ones are you growing in and which ones are you weak in? Where you're weak, we need to strengthen those areas. Perhaps you're good with your relationships, faith, you're generous, but struggling perhaps with the finances or even the values. And so you can look at these 12 different areas and determine which ones that you feel that you have a handle on and which ones that we need to strengthen. And the application is, what is one step you could take to grow in each of these 12 important areas? What step you can take today to grow in these 12 areas, because we have not fully grown in any one of these areas. Once there is life, there's room for further growth and improvement and development. And so as you examine these 12 principles of your own personal growth, how do we apply it into our own lives, apply these principles, important areas that will cause us to be a person that is useful and fruitful today and in the days to come.
You know, personal growth is sometimes overlooked, but as you've been speaking all evening, personal growth is very important. You know, I'm thinking you spoke about bearing fruit, and my mind went to a mango tree that's behind my house. And that one mango tree, I have watched from a child until now that so much people have benefited from that one mango tree. I will watch men, there will be a shortcut not too far from my house to another area. And people be passing there early in the morning and they will pick up a few mangoes and they will go with it. Another set will be coming up in the afternoon and they would also pick up some fruits and benefit. So one tree that grew benefited so much people. Likewise, our personal growth, although done for us, or we may see it just for us, but it will be benefiting to so much other people. Reverend John, what are some of the hindrances to personal growth that people might not want to, you know, get involved or take on personal growth? What are some of the hindrances?
I guess if we become self-satisfied to where we are,
Okay.
and we're contented to where we have arrived. So we become demotivated, and we do not think that we need to grow in particular areas. But what this discussion has shown us that there's always room for growth in one or more of these areas. But it's in our attitude, because that's a starting point. Attitudes affect the people that we live with, the people that we work with, the people that we associate with. You walk into a room, or you're in an event together, or you're communicating with your peers, and they can easily pick up your attitude, and that can affect the whole atmosphere or environment in which you're involved with. So you want to guard the negative traits that comes out. And how do you set yourself up for positive attitude, a self-check? So the same way that you check yourself in the mirror before you leave the home and make sure everything is in place, so that when you go out, that you can be safe in the public. In the same way, there is a self-check, and looking in the mirror, as it were. This is not necessarily a physical mirror that reflects your physical body, but it's a spiritual mirror, as it were, that you check yourself in terms of your attitude, because that will impact not only your day, but the day of others that you are associated with. And then as we work through these different steps and stages, faith in God, to know that He is able to correct those attitudes that are not good for us, to change us, because growth is a matter of change. We cannot be the same if we are growing. We're never the same if we're growing, physically as well as emotionally. We're going spiritually, intellectually. It changes us, changes our behaviors, and it should change us for the better. It's not only changing us in the physical sense, but in our emotional growth and spiritual growth, to become a better person, a better leader, rather than having to repair things regularly. We can prepare ahead of time. We can prepare, focus, increase our efficiency, increase our confidence. We can save money instead of preparing. We are preparing. It takes you to a higher growth level when we prepare. And the same way that you prepare for interviews, or you prepare for your job, prepare for a career or for an education, in the same way you prepare for life. And that affects every area of how we can increase our efficiency, rather than repairing, where we always have to go back and fix up things that are so much more expensive and time consuming. It becomes an obstacle to our own growth. And that takes time to think, as we mentioned before. Reflection, serious thinking, in terms of getting a perspective that is ultimately biblical and scriptural as a Christian leader, because true wisdom and true perspective come from God alone. And so we seek that wisdom that comes, heavenly wisdom that comes from God Himself, who gives generously. It says, if any man, James writing, if any man lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives generously. He doesn't hold it back from anyone, but anyone who asks of Him, He will give to us.
Right. So we have been discussing some very pertinent and important things, and the last 12 pointers or decision to manage for personal growth. And we look at attitude, priorities, health, family, thinking, commitment, finances, faith, relationships, your generosity, values, and growth. And these pointers are to be daily addressed, right? Reverend John, are these pointers or these decision tools, are they only for leaders or can everyone apply them?
Oh, absolutely. They're applicable to every person,
Right.
to young people, to teenagers, to young couples, singles as well. These are all practical leadership, personal growth concepts that is applicable to everyone, to anyone at every stage of life.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So if we really pay attention to, let's look at a growth, as we mentioned, plant. Let's just look at a plant. Most plants start from a seed. And it takes time to grow. It takes time to grow. So we learned today that growth is not automatic. Sometimes it may be even painful to grow. It might be painful to put aside certain things that we might have grown accustomed to, certain mentality, certain, things that we practice. So we have to take the time daily and grow. Daily grow. Sometimes you might have to deal with one issue for 2-3 days or 4 weeks, but at the end of it, you're growing. All right. So we're going to apply these principles and these decision tools that have been shared with us. And I'm sure and I'm hoping that 6 months from now, we probably will have testimonies of people who grew in their attitude and their health and finances. We know the things that we need to do. So we take steps, as the people say, baby steps until it grows to the place we want to be continually in Christ. Are there any final words you want to share with us before we wrap up today's session?
Great. So just the subtitle of the discussion today, as you mentioned earlier, stop learning today and you'll stop leading tomorrow. We are to continue to grow in all aspects. And it has to be done on a daily basis. So the question for us as we wrap up this time together, what have you learned today in this discussion? Yes? What have you learned today? One thing that you have learned in this hour together. So that's our question for you today.
Okay.
You may want to put that in the chat. You may want to ask a question somewhere.
Yes.
Or make a comment if possible. One thing that you have learned from this time together today.
All right. It's in the chat as we speak.
Okay.
So it has been a very informative session, and Ephesians 4:15, the scripture in the text says, we are to continue to grow in all aspects in him who is the head, even Christ. So ladies and gentlemen, take growth seriously. It impacts your life and those around you, right? So take some time to grow, and may the Lord be with you. Thank you for joining us today and spending this hour with us as we discussed under the topic, Today Matters. Today Matters, Leadership and Personal Growth. Have a blessed Wednesday afternoon and see you next week, God's will. Bye-bye.
Bye. God bless. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for being with us.
We are a chosen generation. We've been called for to show His excellence.